Hey, everybody. Happy Make Your Move Monday on this Memorial Day Monday. This is Latrice McFadden coming to you live all the way actually from Wesley Chapel, Florida, with my special guest, my recent client, Marissa Jones, joining me today on this Memorial Day. And I think it's so fitting because Memorial Day is to, thank the people or recognize or honor people that have sacrificed and, given their lives for us so that we can have more. And her story, part of having more is building generational wealth. And for her to be a first time home buyer and come on today and start that process of generational wealth. I'm just super excited to have her here. So, Marissa, do you mind introducing yourself to the good people that are watching? Mhm.
Yes, my name is Marissa Jones. I'm in the Raleigh area, originally from upstate New York in a small town called Wappingers Falls. And yes, I'm a first time home buyer, so I just closed last month.
Yes, congratulations. I'm so excited for you. So, Marissa and I, we actually met last October at a Building Black Wealth seminar that NARAB or Tribor, the local chapter of NARAB in the Raleigh Durham area that we co-hosted with RC3 Church in Fuquay Varina. So, Marissa, tell me about a little bit like when did you decide you wanted to buy a home? What made you come out to that event? And then we'll go from there.
Funny enough, my background is in collections. I more so dealt with collections recovery.
Hmm.
So just seeing all the hardships and everything that people went through sometimes, I always in the back of my mind says, I will never own a home. This is too much stress. It's too much work. I just don't see it being
Hmm.
something I would want to do in the future. However, as I was talking to people and talking to friends, and then met with a tax accountant, and I was like, man, I'm getting slammed in taxes every year. They don't make it friendly for people who are single and don't have dependents. And I was like,
Hmm.
what's my easiest way to lower my taxes? And he was like, have kids or get a house. And I was like, well, I can do the get a house. So I ended up looking up getting a house, and just that process trying to figure it out on my own was very overwhelming, and I didn't think it was something I would even be able to do.
Hmm.
So funny enough, I was listening to the Light radio station and they were advertising the event there, and they says if you want to learn more about buying a home and different programs that are available, come out. So I came out, and then the event kind of proved me wrong where I initially thought that owning a home was so out of distance for me, and then now it's something that is a reality.
Right. So that was in October, and I think you called me maybe January, February. I don't remember the exact time frame. So what happened between October and January, and then what from that event let you know that it wasn't out of reach?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing for me probably was the availability of down payment assistance, just because a lot of times you hear on TV about, oh, you need 20, 30 down to buy a home. And I was like, I don't have 20 or 30 down to buy a home. And then it was the other piece of just the different programs that are available. So even if I didn't use down payment assistance, I didn't realize there was something like FHA where
Hmm.
you had to put 3% down,
Hmm.
or I didn't know that this specific city has different programs that are available to help people kind of get on the road to saving for a down payment if you needed that assistance. So for me, it was just realizing that there are different programs out there. So in that time in between October and January, I was doing my own research, and I actually reached out to one of the not for profit organizations that help people get set up for the home buying process, which is helpful because then the person that I met with, we went over our budget and explained like what to expect and what to plan for and what to save for, so that at least as I was going through the home buying process, certain things that came up weren't a complete shock to me.
Hmm. So, two couple of key things of what you said. Education, because I kind of like you when my dad first told me that I needed to buy a house, I was like, I can't buy a house. That's just not reasonable right this time. So, getting out of our own way and at least getting the education and reaching out. with that to learn and not being afraid to do additional research. So I want to give a quick plug because we are actually doing another event with RC3 for Juneteenth. So it'll be on that weekend, the 21st, I believe. Yeah, the 21st, and it's going to be in Apex. And I'll put the link for that because we're going to do a similar event. It's going to be a much bigger event for Juneteenth, but want to just encourage people to come out and just ask the questions because that's what we're here for, is to get you educated and let you know. And sometimes people think that it's so much more difficult than it really, really is. So thank you for sharing that information. And I thank you for doing your research. And so when you called me in January, I know you said that you were interviewing realtors. And I think you had talked to one or two other realtors. What were you looking for in that interview process?
My big thing was finding someone who A has worked with first time home buyers before, and B who had a decent amount of experience themselves. And then C, I wanted somebody that had experience with down payment assistance. So at least
Okay.
for me, the first realtor I met with, she had worked with first time home buyers, but she had no experience with home down payment assistance.
Hmm.
And the other realtor I met with, he had experience with first time home buyers and a little experience with down payment assistance, but he hadn't been a realtor that long. So he seemed very nice, but I just wanted somebody with a little bit more experience since I was so inexperienced at the time.
Okay. Well, I'm so glad you called me and I had the opportunity to work with you. And I have been working with first time home buyers and down payment assistance for about as long as I've been in the industry. So I joke and tell people that I used to tell people at the beginning that if you have $1,000, I can get you into a house. I can't say that anymore, but I can still say if you save as much as you can save, we can get you through that process, and I'm going to work with you. So, so you had reached out to the nonprofit agency, and when you talked to them and they told you about the down payment assistance, did it seem overwhelming, or what were your thoughts when they were telling you about it, or how did you feel about it?
I I wouldn't say I felt overwhelmed by it. I say if anything, it made me hopeful. It made me realize that home buying wasn't out of reach. That now not only would I have 20% down, but I could potentially have um 50% down or 60% down, where now that allowed me to potentially buy a home that normally wouldn't even be in my price range. Now I can afford that because the down payment assistance was going to be able to cover that difference.
Okay.
It
Yep.
allowed me to stay in the it allowed me to stay in an area where I liked, because initially I thought, oh, I'm going to have to leave the Raleigh area and move to another area that I'm not familiar with. So that really allowed me to stay in an area that I'm comfortable in.
Right. Yes, it did. It gave you quite a few options in different areas in Raleigh because I think we looked at, I think the first day we may looked at like maybe 5 to 7 townhomes the first day,
Yeah.
and then I think you we saw the no the second time we went out we saw this one, right? I
Yeah.
think the second time we saw this one. So lots of options, and I love that you knew exactly what you were looking for, and you were very realistic with your budget because that always is can be a challenge because buying a home we want to get, a lot of times people think it's their forever home and it's got to be their dream home. And so you looked at really what your needs were and you were open to the homes that matched your budget. So I appreciate you making that part of the process relatively easy. So we went out, we looked, we saw a variety of homes. We saw older ones, we saw newer ones, we saw 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms. How did you come to the conclusion on the one that you picked? Because I think in that particular day, we saw several that were
Hmm.
similar. How did you come to pick the one that you decided on? What was the deciding factor for you?
At least when I drove into this neighborhood, the neighborhood itself felt like home. It just is like,
Mhm.
oh, this is nice. Just looking around at the different amenities that were available in this neighborhood stuck out to me. Um, but as you remember, when we went on the open houses, there were several homes for sale on the block just because the community is so big. So at least for me, when I was looking, I liked the layout of this one. This one stood out to me the most. And then I also liked that the seller was also somewhat the owner. So like they knew the backstory of the home and the property,
Mhm.
and it wasn't just like a realtor trying to get the property sold and off their books so they can make their commission.
There, yep. And you won a gift card from that too. You were winner of the door prize winner for that that day too. So now let's talk. You found the house. Well, we when we met, we talked about the process. Was there anything when we met and had our buyer consultation that I shared with you that stood out to you or that you thought might be challenging about the home buying process now that you were pre-approved and all of that?
For me, honestly, and it's funny because I'm in the financial aid world right now, and the catchphrase in financial aid is always documentation, documentation, documentation. Like, we need documentation for everything. So,
Mm,
going into the process, I'm like, I know I'm going to need X, Y, and Z to go through this process. But I didn't realize like how intense that was going to be, where it's like, we need this now. And then it's like, oh my gosh. Let me get this to you now, then it'd be like a hurry up and wait situation where it's like, oh no, I have to figure out where I put my 2013 tax return. Who knows? Where that might have been 3 laptops ago. So
That's
just, yeah, so getting documentation. I knew I was going to need a lot of documents. I just didn't know like how far back I was going to need, and then the consistency of what I was going to need them. So, like, I knew I would need this document for the lender, but then I didn't realize that I was going to need that same document for the down payment assistance. I didn't realize I was going to need that same document for the city. So, just like keeping a file where I saved everything ended up saving me a lot because when the repetitiveness of it happened, I knew
mhm,
I had that piece ready to go again.
yeah. So you also talked to a couple of lenders. You did a couple of pre-approvals. How did you decide which lender you were going to use, when you had both of those? Yeah, you had 3 pre-approvals actually, I think, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I the lender process, that one was a little bit more difficult for me to figure out just because I remember people saying to get more than one pre-approval
Mhm,
just to see out there. So I went to a broker,
mhm,
where they kind of search out the best, I guess, mortgage pre-approval, and then
mm,
I went to a local bank. I tried to go through my credit union, but my credit union didn't have any mortgage options that I wanted to go with. So then
mhm,
I another local bank. So deciding on which one to choose was a little bit difficult. I think the one lender I was able to kind of rule out because the guy was hard to get in touch with, and I was like, if it's hard to get in touch with him now, going through the mortgage process is going to be even more difficult. So
mhm,
that
mhm.
was filter out. The last one was difficult just because both lenders seemed really good. They seemed really knowledgeable. They both worked with down payment assistance in the past. So it really just became looking at the fees and who had the most fees or the most expensive processing charges.
Okay. Yep, so and then also you were making sure that you were comparing apples to apples with those processes because the different loan products, like you said, the credit union, because they typically do offer 100% financing, they don't do any down payment assistance, so that would have changed what you could qualify for, so that you had to make sure you're comparing apples to apples. Okay, so then you found out that you were eligible for you got 3 different down payment assistance
Yeah.
programs, and we had to stack those. And just when you learned about the different products and or down payment assistance products and what it took to go through them, what were your thoughts on that and having to getting it explained to you how they work and stacking them and what the requirements were?
That piece was a little different. So because some of them were very simple where you just needed to live in a certain zip code area. Some were very, I don't want to say strict, but had a little bit more guidelines where they needed to see the inspection to confirm that the home was ready to live in. So that process was interesting. It was nice knowing that I could stack them just because um, having that ability to stack made more funds available to me.
Mhm.
Just getting them all three to work at the same time and mesh. together, that was a little bit of a process. So I think that slowed things down a little bit. So that's where I understood where the first realtor I met with, she had mentioned she was aware of down payment assistance, but she typically didn't work with clients who used it because it would typically, she said it would always take longer. And she said she didn't always have clients that were patient enough to go through that process. So I was like, "Oh, I guess. I mean, you get your house when you get your house." But then seeing the process, yeah, if you have a very strict time constraint and you want to move in, or if you're worried about losing the home if you're in a bidding war, yeah, you definitely have patience and time for the down payment process.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we started a little bit earlier because I know with down payment assistance, especially because you use CPLP and the city of Raleigh, North Carolina Housing, was that the third one? So like North Carolina Housing and some of them are, just like you said, live a certain place, be a certain income level. But with CPLP, that one is always the one that you really have to work through. So when we are going to even look at homes, we need to make sure that it is to the best of our ability, that it's pretty much ready to go. And then you also need to have some very clear conversations with the listing agent. And like you said, of course, with this one, the listing agent happened to be the owner. So it was easier to have those conversations about, are you going to be open
Mm-hmm.
to that these things may have to be done, because it wouldn't be just like a regular
Mm-hmm.
loan where you can say, oh, well, just give me a credit and I'll fix it after closing, because these inspectors, they want all of these things done before, because and that's for your protection as a buyer, so that you know that you're not going to move into something and have problems immediately. They're going to be checking for anything like that. So I know during your process, it was because there were some things that we really couldn't tell from the naked eye that needed to be done, that came up in the home inspection. How going through that process, how was it for you when it
Mm-hmm.
took time to get those issues resolved from the home inspection and from things like that and getting them done?
At least for me, it was a little stressful in the sense that Um, some things that happened, like you said, were unexpected. It wasn't things that could seen to the naked eye, and even the seller slash listing agent wasn't even aware of some of the issues. So it was working through those, but then it also hit me a little bit in reality, like, oh well, as a homeowner, that's gonna be me in the future. Like when this goes out, or when that breaks down, or when that needs to be repaired, it's no longer you can call the landlord. I'm the landlord now. So
Yeah,
that process was a little bit stressful, and then also it was the piece of, like, I feel like I had to constantly tell myself, like, "Take my emotions out of it." Be like, "Just go with the process." So it's like anytime I got anxious or nervous or frustrated, I would just have to remind myself, "Just don't take it personal. Just go along with the process and let things happen as they are. It'll eventually happen, and then if it doesn't, that's okay. As we know, there's more houses out there, so we'll just keep looking." So I just had to keep reminding myself that, because I think even at one point, I kinda let my nerves get the best of me, and I was like, "I don't wanna do this anymore. Can you look at another house?"
I remember that call.
And then I it's like after I calmed down a little bit and I realized, like, you're gonna run into, even a new construction, you're gonna run into issues at any home you're getting ready to purchase. So you just kind of have to take a deep breath and realize, like, these are homes. They have issues that are gonna come up. So you just need to be prepared for when that happens, and just know that most things can be repaired, and at least in the home buying process, if it can't be repaired, you can walk away.
Absolutely. So I appreciate, for you as a client, you always ask all of your questions. So when you had something, I have questions and you would always ask them. So I appreciate you asking me as your real estate professional. I mean, I'm sure you probably talk to other people too, but I appreciate you listening to what I had to say as far as the process and what was going on, because sometimes we can talk to people that have had whatever experience they had. Um, and then kind of take that as the gospel when it may or may not be the gospel. So I
Mhm.
appreciate you, always asking me the question and listening to what I was saying and taking it into consideration during the process. Excuse me. Excuse me. Um, so now that we got through all of the inspections, we got everything done, and then you got ready to you went to closing, and then you have come back since, and you've made some changes in your house even before you have completely moved in. And we were talking right before, and you were like, actually, probably the most stressful part has been moving. So that kind of made me feel a little better that even though we had some, things that we had to get through, some challenges that we had to overcome during the process. But so now you have made some changes in your home. What have you done? Anything else? I know you took down popcorn ceiling. How was that
Yeah.
process?
Honestly, the contractor I ended up using, he was fantastic. He did such a good job. I feel like he must be some type of superhero where he has multiples of himself because he did it so fast too. It's like he started it one day and I was like, "Oh, I needed to come by the property real quick just to drop something off." And when I came, like the popcorn ceilings were already down. I was like, "It
Did
was
you do
one
both
day?"
upstairs and downstairs? Did you
But
do
right now I just did downstairs.
all? Okay.
So upstairs I'm gonna save for a later date just because down the road I wanna like renovate upstairs. So I
Hmm.
figured when I renovate upstairs I'll get rid of the popcorn ceilings up there. But at least my thought process was if I have him do downstairs, I can start moving in upstairs.
Hmm.
Thinking that he was gonna take like 2 weeks to take down that popcorn ceiling. It did not take him that long.
Yeah, and you sent me the pictures, and it looks amazing, like a whole new house. So I'm so excited to see what you do. And we were able to negotiate some new appliances and some other things within while we were doing going through the process and making your offer. So that was nice. This market is changing a little bit towards being more of a buyer's market, so that does give you the ability to negotiate a little bit more, because probably a year or two ago, using down payment assistance, especially the time frame taking 45 to 60 days. I think we were actually supposed to close the 1st of April, and we ended up closing
Mhm.
closer to the end of April.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, so we had to be flexible. So having those, conversations again, so that the seller is willing to go ahead and do what they need to do, and then work and give us the extensions that were needed. Because CPLP, it's a phenomenal program. Because I think that one gives you up to 50,000, if I remember
Right.
correctly, towards your down payment assistance. But again, they do want to make sure that the house is, they say, safe, habitable, and it was three categories that they give. But some of them, like, we had to go back, and we knew that the city said that the smoke detectors had to be replaced, and they didn't tell them that the smoke detectors had to be hardwired, so they had to go back and fix things like that. So you're walking into a pretty solid situation with knowing that your house is going to be in good condition for the next however many years that you're there. So any other, like, one of the things I talk about with Make Your Move is people, making their move, obviously, in real estate. So what would you tell somebody who is kind of thinking about the process, that they might need to or want to buy a home, that they're getting eaten up by taxes, or whatever, they want to start building generational wealth? What would you tell somebody that is thinking about it but maybe think they can't do it?
Mhm. I would say, and at least for me, especially working in financial aid, being linked to a college, I say education is key.
Mhm.
That was the main thing that drove me into the process because I just assumed things about the home buying process, and it wasn't until I got educated. And then that's the other thing too: get educated by experts. Don't just
Mhm.
the internet is a great thing, but everybody has an opinion on the internet, and whether that opinion is correct still remains to be seen. Versus if you actually speak to the people that do this day in and day out. So when I spoke to the one program, DH, DHIC,
Mhm.
my rep
Mhm.
there kind of broke down the process and broke down the different down payment assistance program that are available and broke down a budget, and make sure you save for this and make sure you save for that and make sure you have an emergency fund. So all of those pieces along the way helped me, because at least for me, I had that savings available, but it also reminded me, well, don't spend all of your savings on the home buying process, because you may need some down the road when your AC goes out, or you need to repair your electrical system, or you have a plumbing issue and you need to call somebody to come look at that. So having that education there definitely made it possible for me, where I was like, okay, this is something that I wouldn't have thought of. And then when it came up, I would have been overwhelmed by the
Mhm,
process.
mhm,
That kind of soured my feelings about owning a home, where now I know, well, if this happens, I have that money still in reserve.
mhm. Absolutely. So, did you change anything when they gave you the education about the budget and things like that? Was there anything that you were like, aha, let me adjust this in my life? Or were you
Yeah.
already pretty much on track because you are in the financial finance industry?
No, I would say I thought I was on track, but there are some things where I was like, I could probably change this or that. So,
Mhm,
yeah, my goal down the line is that I would probably want to have multiple sources of income, just in case, especially in this economy. If something falls through with one job, I want to be able to have another one in
mhm,
place. So
mhm.
that's my thing now. So I want to be able to at least secure something else, just because I felt like, oh, I have a strong enough income, and where I work is pretty stable, but you never know.
Yeah.
So that's my biggest thing now. Well, once I get settled in.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's always, yeah, multiple streams of income is very, very important. So that makes me think about, and I don't know if real estate is an industry that you're interested in, but we are also doing the Triangle Wealthy Group is hosting a Juneteenth event on residential multifamily commercial investment and partnership. So that's going to be actually on Juneteenth. So if you're, looking for additional streams of income, come out and get that education. It's going to be in Durham at the Self Help Credit Union. So I'll put that link in the chat as well, because real estate is a key foundation to building generational wealth. So and having additional streams of income. So I want to invite you out to that if you are available on Juneteenth. It's that Thursday. So I found out that it is, although it's a federal holiday, if you it's on a local level, it's not necessarily a holiday. So if you're off and can join us that day, we're going to provide breakfast and lunch, and have some industry professionals that are going to share their journey and their experience on doing that multifamily commercial type investment, just to give you some other options for additional streams of income. So I did want to share that with you, invite you out to that. Okay, so did you have anything else you wanted to share about your process, your experience? Any, closing comments other than what you just shared for encouragement for people to make your move?
I would say, for anybody that's looking for or starting this process, I also would say never think that it's too late as well either, because I just
Mhm.
assumed, well, based on my age, I don't think I'm going to be able to find anything. So um, that wasn't really as much of a factor as I thought it was going to be. So I feel like a main thing is, don't let your, like you said before, don't let you get in the way of you. So
Mhm,
I
mhm,
feel like one of the things that were holding me back on being a first time buyer was just all in my own head, where I put up the wall of, I can't do this and I can't do that, and this isn't possible, and that's going to take too long, and that's too difficult. And then now, as I'm going through the process, I'm like, oh, I can do this. So now when I bump into people, and especially like my coworkers or my neighbors that's been seeing me move, they're like, oh, I can never buy a home. And I was like, I thought that too, but there is hope out there. So I'm like, now I'm the main person toting about, you can do it too if I can do it.
wow, yes, and being an inspiration and sharing. Get out of your own way, make your move, right? Get that education. That's great advice. That is very good advice because, like I said earlier, a lot of times we can be our own worst enemies and telling us what we can't do. And the whole saying goes, if you say you can, you can. If you say you can't, you can't. So it's what you tell yourself. So, and like you said, once you've decided and you tell yourself, go get the education, and maybe it's sooner than you think, maybe it is longer than you think, but don't give up, don't quit. So, and call me. I'm happy to answer any questions and work through the process with anyone in the process of buying their home. So, Marissa, I so appreciate you joining me, taking some time from your moving schedule when I know this is probably one of your few days off, and you got to get that last little bit of stuff moved over. So I appreciate you taking some time with me today to share your experience, and I appreciate you trusting me to walk you through the process and help you through the process. And I hope it was overall a smooth process for you and you enjoy your home for many, many years to come. And I look forward to hearing from your mom. I know when she came to closing, she said they're going to be trying to get something down here. So I look forward to hearing from her and working with her. And I appreciate you again for taking some time out of your day to
And I
do.
must say, that's one other thing I did want to add in. Thank you for making this process so easy. I think you were a major factor in me getting through this process because whenever I kind of got on the edge, you helped calm me down. You were so knowledgeable about everything. You were so calm about everything. So I truly appreciate you because I don't know if I would have been able to go through this process without you.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you trusting me. And that's what I do. That's what my job is but keep your options open because I don't want anyone to feel like I'm, railroading you into something. So I'm always going to listen to you and what you are listening and then, give you that guidance and help you make that informed decision. So thank you so much. Y'all enjoy this beautiful day. It's hot here in Florida. I don't know how the weather is in North Carolina. How is it there?
It's a little overcast. It was warmer out yesterday, but I'll take the not 80 degrees.
Oh, okay. Well, I won't tell you what the temperature. I went to take my daughter to the airport at 5 o'clock this morning, and it was toasty, but I love it. So I'm here visiting my younger daughter, so I'm taking advantage of all of this nice Florida weather. So, everybody, thank you so much. Enjoy this day. Remember to make your move because every step counts. And we look forward to seeing you at our upcoming events in June, which June is home ownership month. So that's very appropriate for getting that information and getting that education. Y'all have a great day. Thank you again, Marissa.
Thank you.
Bye.